Hello, I'm Dorothy. Patrick filming. We're Toronto Master Gardeners. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to reduce the size of this cedar shrub quite considerably. It has overgrown the space it's in, it's crowding other plants, and it's overgrown the front wall. It's the last week in June, an ideal time for pruning evergreens because the first burst of spring growth has happened. So it's put out a lot of new growth, and that's what I want to take back. Unfortunately, in this new growth, I'm going to be cutting off the seeds. This is called masting, and these are all little seeds. We don't need them because I don't want to be growing a lot of new cedars, but these will be cut off. They're very attractive, but I will cut these off. And in this cedar, it's actually quite nice because there has been light getting into it, so there's a lot of internal growth. So where you've got internal growth like this, I can take off a considerable amount here. See the new growth here? So I can take off this whole branch, this whole amount. So I look back down every stem or every shoot to see where I've got internal growth, and I can take off right back to these in here. For instance, with this one here, look back, and if you look in, I've got growth coming here, here, and actually right back here. And for this one, I'm going to go right back to that spot there and take this one off. I've got growth here. Here's another really good example if you can get in nice and close. See all this growth out here. And then when I go back in, this cluster of growth in this one here. So I can take off this one. And then I'll take off here. And this one here, I've got growth here, so off it comes. And here. Now there's some brown in behind, so I'm just going to clean that up. Take that off. Now that has thinned it out quite a lot as well, so I've got to be careful in the other parts around it that I don't make this just too nude. But that's taken off a really good amount of growth. So as you can see, I have done probably half of it. If you come to the side here, you can see how much I've reduced the size. It was out here, I've now brought it back to here, and I would say it doesn't really look as if I've done much to it, and that's what you want. You don't want it to look like it's had a haircut, shorn. So each branch here, I have gone back to see where is there earlier growth so that I can take this off. So I go in, here we go here. Earlier growth. Growth goes actually right back into here. Here, here. So I'll err on the safe side for now, and I'll only go back to this part here. And I take this off. So there's how much I'm able to take off by just doing that. And then the other thing that you can do, this is me structurally pruning it. It's got too big, so I want to reduce the size. The other thing you can do with cedars is just trim it. If you want to thicken out your cedar, a lot of times a new cedar, they're kind of spindly. Well, you would sort of take off a bit at the top, you would trim the sides, and that encourages bushiness, it encourages it to thicken out. But this doesn't need to thicken out anymore. This is lovely and dense. So it's structural pruning, back in, reduce the size, and then at the end I can do a little bit of trimming for the odd ones here, like this, that's still sticking out. so I can just trim off the ends here. The trick is always make sure you're going back to where there is growth. Don't go back further than that growth. All this that's dropped down, what happens is that every year inner needles will brown and die off because the plant doesn't need those any longer. It's going to put its strength into growing the new shoots out at the front. This stuff is great. This basically is compost. So gather this up because this is good for your garden. What I'm doing here, I'm pushing it back in so that basically I'm mulching the roots of this cedar. So I mentioned earlier that these are seeds. Actually, these are cones. And the seeds develop inside the cone. Inside the female cone, you will get seeds, and this is last year's. And these have opened up and the seeds have dropped out. So this year's and last year's. So the seeds develop, the cones develop, opened up the following year, and it releases the seeds. Cedars need a moist soil. So they like a lot of water. You've got to continue to water them right up through fall into frost until the ground freezes, because they can't take up water through winter, and they get a lot of windburn, sunburn. So you want to make sure that the needles are well moistened going into winter. The very fact that they need a moist soil is that often they're planted in sort of swampy or damp areas. And I think this is why people say, oh, I don't like cedars because they attract mosquitoes. Well, in fact, it's where they're planted that attracts the mosquito. It's not the cedar itself. Cedars are shallow rooted, and the fact that they like a moist soil means that they've got to get a lot of moisture, and it's best to mulch around the root ball. Don't have it up near the stem, the trunk of the tree or the bush, because that can retain moisture there and cause rot. So before you put down mulch, make sure that you water well, and that will keep the moisture in. If you add mulch to a dry soil, the mulch is going to remove any moisture from the soil, and it's actually going to be detrimental. So water well, apply mulch, keep it back from the trunk, and make sure that these get enough water. All done, finished. I'm happy with it. It's reduced substantially. It's no longer hanging over the sidewalk, and end of every job I just automatically clean my pruners, my secateurs,